It's been some time. Welcome to Sin TV. Of course, I am your lovely host, Quita, aka Malaysian Quita, and Sin TV stands for Smart, Intelligent News. This is a whole new, brand new chapter in Sin TV. I am proud to bring back a segment that I really enjoy doing. As you know, I am a huge fan of podcasts, and I did not know that tomorrow is International Podcast Day. So to kick it off with a bang for International Podcast Day, I decided to bring back a segment I love called the Podcasting Critic, okay? So just like what I do on the Curvy Metalhead show with Keeping It Real, we're going to keep it real and review podcasts. And it's just all going to be podcasts. So whether it's an audio or a video cast, doesn't matter. I'm going to look through and review it. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Leave them in the comments below. I'll listen to the show, check it out, give you my 2 cents on it. So I know with Sin TV, I've been really focusing a lot on my gaming, which is something I really value. It's really important to me. But one thing that I felt was important, and as I was doing this lovely makeup today, no, I'm kidding. But all jokes aside, as I was doing my makeup today, this idea just popped in my head. And this is what Sin TV is about. Bringing geekery to society. I never thought of it that way. And what that pretty much means is, I'm trying to bring the multiculturalism and the importance of that and my love of geekery things to society, to you amazing people, aka, like I always say, my rockers and minions out there. So that's what Sin TV is focused on. Of course, you know what Curvy Metalhead show is all about as well. But I really felt that there was not a lot of YouTube shows that really kind of focus on that type of topic. So I'm talking about things more from a socio-cultural approach. So let's get into the first ever podcast that I am reviewing. But I forgot. Let's talk about International Podcast Day and what it is about. So International Podcast Day is September 30th. Hashtag Podcast Day. So make sure you follow on Twitter, hashtag Podcast Day, and you may find a podcast that you will enjoy. So help spread the word. International Podcast Day is dedicated to promoting podcasting worldwide through education and public engagement. You may be asking, what can I do to help and what can I do to get involved on International Podcast Day? So, as they mentioned, the first thing to do is the conversation. Now, this is one thing that kind of, I would say, irritates me about podcasting or people. The way that people perceive podcasters is sometimes they're not professional. And that's something that really, really, really irritates me, especially looking through the lens as a new media person as well, combining the old school and the new school viewpoints and methods of media communication, is that podcasts are futuristic in a way. I mean, I think that podcasts really kind of branched out and started all these other things like the video, podcasts and of course live streaming with things like what I do with Twitch, is because people like to see things, in a very, I would say, independent way. Like people like their media to be independent now. And I noticed that that's been an ongoing trend for the last couple of years. So one thing I will do with the Podcasting Critic as well is interview other podcasters as well as just kind of talking about the culture, because I just hate when people stereotype podcasters and they don't take them seriously. To put together a podcast is not easy. And we're going to get into that as well. I'm going to be talking about, in the future what a podcast is and, even sometimes culturally, how they treat the African American or African podcasters sometimes can be different than how they treat white podcasters or people from other parts of the world as well. So we're going to get into all of those juicy topics. Besides, I also wanted to cover some like news related topics as well. So I'm really coming to center. So International Podcast Day, that's the first level, is having that conversation. Podcasting, it's here to stay. It's such a great medium that I also recommend for many of you who don't know. I actually am going for a master's in student affairs. So it's a great way too for students to kind of express themselves or to create a program that's unique to their, to their talents and their abilities. And I think podcasting too, especially for those of you who are going to radio, TV, film, it always makes me laugh sometimes with communication, depending on the school. Some schools call it electronic media or new media, journalism or journalism. There's so many names, let me tell you. This media umbrella. But I digress. I mean, there's so many different, terminologies. And if you're into that program, one of the misconceptions, I think, especially for radio students, is, well, some, not all, they wait way too long. And, it's senior year, and then they want to smack together an air check. But if you start a podcast, here's a classic example of a podcast that's actually, you can use your career or your area of discipline and turn it into a program, which thus can help you with things like networking. So I gotta give special shout out to studentaffairscollective.org. This is amazing. So Tom Craigstein, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, and Kevin Prentice, in 2005, they wanted to create this kind of unique online community for people who are student affairs professionals. And they started this podcast for student affairs. So it's the studentaffairscollective.org. Even if you're not interested in student affairs, it's still a very engaging podcast. It's a very interesting podcast. And it really just they really do a good job, both of them, kind of learning the the discipline, of student affairs. And I mean, there's Deborah and Tom, and they interview, like, ever so often they interview different student professionals. Like, I just listened to a podcast, it was absolutely amazing, talking about sustainability, which is a very important concept in student affairs. So I'll talk about my field as well on Sin TV for time to time. But that's just an example. Like, you can take something that you didn't think was a career, and then it can blossom into something like the Student Affairs Collective. But today, let's focus on this. To me, it's kind of like a video cast show. To me, it's not. It's weird because you can't categorize it as just a podcast. It's more of like a video show, which is like a video podcast. That's what I categorize this as. So there's this guy on YouTube. He's amazing. His name is It's like ITMEJP. So it's like It's Me JP. Dumb. So he has this program called Drop Frames, and it is such a genius show because this show actually helped me to learn more about what it takes to be a live streamer on Twitch. And what people don't realize is that live streaming is not an easy thing. You have to be consistent with it. Some of these guys and ladies too, shout outs to all the awesome, diverse lady streamers out there as well. This is something that people spend hundreds of hours on. Some people never leave their homes sometimes because they have to be engaged and keeping continuity with their audience, So Drop Frames, I've been watching like almost, I think I'm up to like episode maybe 20 or so, but it's such a great show. So the pilot I really enjoyed too. So Drop Frames is pretty much a show with It's Me JP, Ezekiel_3, and Cole Carnage. So all they do really is they just have these discussions talking about how it's like being a full-time streamer. Now, here are some of the pros of Drop Frames. Now, if you are new to Twitch, I highly recommend this show. Everything is beautifully organized. So if you want a playlist of just Drop Frames on the It's Me JP YouTube channel, I'll have everything linked below this video so you can check it out. Yeah, you can find it and it just plays. You can set it, of course, autoplay, and it'll just play through. And you can also pick, because they have the titles set by category. They even do stream critique stream critiques. Like, I can talk today, right? But it's just a very unique show. The other thing that I like too is they had an episode with lady streamers as well. So if you're looking for, kind of learning more behind the scenes of what it means to be a streamer, and they also talk about other things too. They talk about the issues in the gaming community. They talk about different games that are coming out from MMORPGs, and all that. It's very, very unique, interesting perspective, because a lot of times people assume that full-time streamers, it's kind of like the titty streamers, like we just sit here like this, glam, love me please, love me. But that's not how it is. Like, there's a lot of work that us streamers do before this camera even turns on. And then they even talk about like one of my favorite episodes was when they were discussing about YouTubers who go on Twitch and the validity of that as well. And yeah, because there's always this controversy I've kind of noticed between YouTube personalities who go over to Twitch, and sometimes some, in the Twitch community feel it's a form of hypocrisy, but I don't really think it is, because I'm one of those people. Like, I started on YouTube, and now I also have integrated to Twitch, and it's like the best of both worlds. I think Twitch is such, like, for me, I'm on the gaming talk show stream, so I do commentaries and things like that, and I play games. I mean, you've seen many of my newer videos. So let's go on to the cons, I would say, of drop frames. This is like my main issue I have with this show, and this is not me being like, oh, the show sucks, like any critic, quote unquote, can say that, but I like to give intellectual, constructive criticism. Here's the main con of drop frames is this. Personally, I really wish they could include more people of color and talk about those type of topics. Because one of the things to me, which is a problem that I have with Twitch, is the lack of people of color that are represented, period. Like, it bothers me. I mean, yeah, there's Asian and, I've seen a couple African American, but I'm not really seeing full kind of diversity across the board. I've seen some LGBT streamers as well, which is cool. But I really wish on drop frames that, especially the lady streamer episode, that's great. But, excuse me, I would have loved to see more diversity, to see women of color, to see men of color who stream, and doing an episode about that, about the perceptions of what they go through. Because some of the white streamers, do they get the harassment and all that? Absolutely. But for people of color, it's a very unique experience. I mean, I've been called the N-word. I've had people say I'm transgender. Like, all these kind of super, like, people saying it out of disrespect, and they have, it's a unique experience. So that's my only thing I would really say is a con with drop frames, is I really wish they would include more. I saw they had episodes with, some lady streamers, but include more of them, including more of diversity conversation, because I think that's really another part of the Twitch community that doesn't get accounted for. So if I could give a rating to drop frames, I would give it an excellent rating. This is a show that, even if you're not, a super gamer, you can still relate to it. I mean, the guys and ladies, of course, that come on the show from time to time, they're very engageable, with their content, and it's very easy to listen to. And that's always a good podcast, is when it's something you can just turn on, sit back, relax, and just enjoy the program. So let me know, what do you think about drop frames? Also, let me know what you also think about the Student Affairs Collective, because I think it's an excellent show. If there's any shows, podcasts that you want me to review, even if you want me to review your own podcast, I will do that. You can leave your comments below. Also, you can send an email to me at sintvnow@gmail.com, and I will check it out and review it. So once again, thanks so much for watching. I know this is completely different from all the streaming videos I've been doing. I've been like, oh, streaming freak. But always remember to stay classy and don't be trashy.